Welcome to this first summer work period episode of Leader Time by FedNet, the podcast for daily floor remarks by Senate Majority Leader John Thune and Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. The Senate returned for work on June 1st. Looking ahead to votes in relation to the Secure America Act postponed in May, Thune focused on immigration funding. The following material is protected by copyright.
Mr. President, enforcing our nation's laws is not optional. Securing our borders isn't optional. And supporting the men and women who do this important work, funding law enforcement, isn't optional either. That should go without saying. But unfortunately, Mr. President, members of the Democrat Party have made it very clear that they disagree. Incredibly, Democrats have refused to provide a single penny for border security and immigration law enforcement for fiscal year 2026. That's $0 for a physical presence at our nation's border. $0 to deport criminals who have made their way into our country illegally. If Democrats had their way, illegal immigrants would be allowed to flood across our nation's southern border entirely unchecked. And I guess we really shouldn't be surprised, Mr. President. After all, this is hardly the first time Democrats have demonstrated that border security and immigration enforcement are at the very bottom of their priority list. For decades now, Democrat-led cities and states have implemented sanctuary policies that prevent local law enforcement from cooperating with federal immigration authorities. These policies have had deadly consequences, yet Democrats have defended them and continued to uphold them across the country. Then there was the crisis at the southern border. Four straight years of record-breaking illegal immigration at our southern border under Democrats and President Biden. As the New York Times reported, and I quote, "After Mr. Biden became president, migrant encounters at the southern border quickly doubled, then kept rising. New arrivals overwhelmed border stations, then border towns, and eventually major cities like New York and Denver," end quote. That from the New York Times, Mr. President. Now contrast that with today. Illegal crossings have plummeted to a trickle. And as of the end of April, not a single illegal immigrant has been released at the border and into our country for an entire year. But, Mr. President, Democrats are apparently determined to bring back unchecked illegal immigration. And to do that, they are embracing the far-left ideologies of defund law enforcement and abolish ICE. These were once considered fringe positions among Democrats. Today, they're basically the official position of the Democrat Party. The junior senator from California said in January, and I quote, "I'm not giving ICE or Border Patrol another dime," end quote. The junior senator from Massachusetts told a crowd in February, and I quote, "We know that we must defund and abolish ICE," end quote. And one Democrat Senate candidate has even said, and I quote, "Dismantling ICE is the moderate position," end quote. Mr. President, this is today's Democrat Party, a party enthralled to its far-left base, and a party that has completely abandoned its national security responsibilities when it comes to enforcing immigration law and securing our borders. Mr. President, needless to say, as long as Republicans are in charge, we are not going to let Democrats defund border security and immigration law enforcement. So we're moving forward with a bill to fund these important responsibilities for the remainder of the Trump administration so that Democrats cannot again put our nation's security and American safety in jeopardy. Mr. President, I don't know who Democrats think benefits from blocking funding for Border Patrol and ICE. The American people certainly don't benefit from there being no law enforcement at the border. They don't benefit from human traffickers and drug smugglers being able to enter our country unchecked. or from rapists, murderers, and other criminals being allowed to live freely in our country. The Democrats' position puts illegal immigrants in danger as well. Border Patrol agents are the ones pulling illegal immigrants out of the Rio Grande and rescuing dehydrated migrants in the desert. But Democrats don't support these agents' work. If Democrats' position helps anyone, it helps the cartels, the coyotes, and other criminals who prefer to act without risk of detection and apprehension. And I suspect that's why we haven't heard much from Democrats in recent weeks about the core of this legislation. Democrats haven't exactly demonstrated an eagerness to come to the floor and defend open borders. And I strongly suspect that's because at some level they know that their position is completely indefensible. Mr. President, President Trump and Republicans have cleaned up Democrats' mess at the border. We've secured the southern border and put criminals on notice that they will no longer be living freely in our country. And we plan to keep it that way.
Schumer followed with remarks on the bill, a proposed weaponization fund, Iran and the economy.
Mr. President, the press reports that Trump says he will table his $2 billion MAGA slush fund, but a promise from Trump is worthless. If Trump and Republicans are truly abandoning this corrupt scheme, they should have zero problem banning it in law. This week, Senate Democrats will push legislation to ban this slush fund and ensure no president can ever do this again. Trump's word is nowhere near enough. Donald Trump's attempt to establish this trust fund alone is one of the most glaring cases of corruption in American history. Trump's slush fund is the textbook definition of self-dealing. Trump sued himself, settled with himself, and then Trump gives himself and his family immunity to evade their taxes, and Trump makes you, the American taxpayer, pay for it all. This slush fund could never have passed the smell test. At a time when Americans can barely afford to fill their tanks, to keep the lights on, put food on the table, Trump wants the American people to pay for handouts for MAGA billionaires, cop-beating January 6 insurrectionists, and his own family. He wanted no transparency, no oversight, no accountability. It's disgusting. Now, Trump is claiming that the slush fund is dead for now, but Democrats will not stop until it's well and truly buried and can never see the light of day. Democrats are going to make sure this slush fund is dead and cannot be revived, just like we did with the ballroom. Republicans can try to wriggle their way out of answering for this corruption, but it won't work. If Republicans try to force through their reconciliation bill again, the first amendment I will offer will be to ban the slush fund permanently and forever. If Republicans try to meddle with the appropriations process to do Trump's bidding, we will fight it there too. And if Republicans try to use toothless constraints to make the slush fund more palatable, we will press them to dismantle it entirely. For something as inherently corrupt as this slush fund, half measures won't cut it. You don't fix a corrupt slush fund by relying on the word of the most untrustworthy president we have ever had. You ban it. The slush fund is rotten to the core. Democrats will make sure Republicans vote on it no matter what. This is corruption in broad daylight, and Republicans are foolish to think they can hide in the shadows. Now on costs. Last week, we got new inflation numbers showing that prices are at their highest level in years. Families are saving less as they struggle to make ends meet. Americans are working harder, paying more, and getting less. That's Trump's economy at work. From Trump's mouth to the American people's ears, he said, quote, "I don't think about Americans' financial situation. All Trump thinks about is building his golden ballroom, putting his name on a massive arch, lining his pocket with taxpayer dollars, and slapping his face onto a $250 bill. None of that lowers costs. None of that helps working families. All Trump's vanity projects do is waste time and money. And our Republican friends seem to go along with almost all of it, maybe even all of it. Meanwhile, two-thirds of Americans, say they've had to cut back on groceries the past few months because of skyrocketing costs. This comes as new data shows household electricity prices have spiked by 18% since Trump took office. With the hottest months now upon us, summer season, rising energy costs will only further strain families' pocketbooks. The average home cooling costs could reach nearly $800 this summer, an 8.5% increase over last year and 37% more than in 2020. A poll over the weekend found that 53% of all Americans say the current cost of living is the worst they have ever seen. What happened to lowering costs on day one, which Trump so proudly proclaimed? And, of course, where are the Senate Republicans? Instead of listening to the American people, working with Democrats to bring costs down, Republicans are working around the clock to aid and abet Trump's corruption, to build his vanity projects on the taxpayer's dime, and funnel tens of billions of dollars to his masked agents, who are already flush with cash. Americans are screaming for relief, and all they hear back from Senate Republicans is silence. Complete, complicit silence. And on the Iran war, once again, the ongoing fighting in Iran has blown holes in Trump's claim that victory is at hand. Over the weekend, Trump said, quote, he's in no hurry to end the war in Iran. No hurry? Tell that to our troops who are in harm's way every second this war continues, including those who were fired upon in Kuwait just this morning. Tell that to their families. Really? No hurry? I'll tell you who's in a hurry for this blunder to end. The American people who are getting crushed by record gas prices at the pump. They're in a hurry. Trump has proven over and over again that he's incapable of getting our country out of this mess. Congress needs to step up. Democrats and a handful of Republicans came together before Memorial Day to advance a war powers resolution to withdraw our troops from hostility with Iran. We will not stop forcing votes to end this war until this disastrous war is over once and for all. Trump and his allies in the Senate may not see the urgency of ending this war, but Democrats and the American people do.
This program is provided by Federal Network Incorporated only for informational and educational purposes. Unauthorized reproduction, distribution, or use of this episode without expressed written permission from FedNet is prohibited. Thanks for listening to this FedNet podcast.